Hey guys, tonight we're taking a truly chilling journey deep into the hidden, shadowy corners of ancient Rome, a civilization famed for its laws, its order, and its pragmatic approach to life. But we're not focusing on its grand temples or its sophisticated legal system. Instead, we're pulling back the veil to uncover the disturbing world of curses and black magic in ancient Rome. Forget the harmonious prayers to Jupiter and Minerva. You're about to discover a grim reality where a whisper of wrath, etched onto a lead tablet, could plunge a life into terrifying torment, where vengeance was sought through dark rituals, and where the supernatural was a pervasive, horrifying force in the daily lives of ordinary Romans. This wasn't a fringe belief. It was a powerful, dark and undercurrent, capable of ruining lives and instilling profound fear. Frankly, you probably wouldn't survive a single accusation of witchcraft without longing for a swift, anonymous disappearance. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me, where in the world are you tuning in from, and what time is it for you right now? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself suddenly standing in a dimly lit, dusty alleyway in Rome, perhaps around the 2nd or 3rd century CE, during the height of the empire. The usual sounds of the bustling city, the clamor of voices, the rumble of carts, the distant roar from the Colosseum are muted here, replaced by a tense, palpable silence. You are not a noble senator or a mighty legionary. You are a common Roman citizen, perhaps a merchant, a craftsman, or a lover. Your life consumed by its daily rhythms and concerns. But then, a perceived wrong, a bitter rivalry, or an act of profound desperation pushes you to consider something dark, something forbidden, a curse. This is a whisper of wrath. And your desire for vengeance is about to lead to the terrifying creation of a defixio. The ancient Romans, for all their pragmatism and their elaborate state religion, were incredibly superstitious. They believed deeply in the power of magic, both white beneficial and black malevolent, while public worship of the Olympian gods was central to Roman life. A thriving underworld of private magical practice, including the casting of curses, existed in parallel. This wasn't something only practiced by the marginalized, people from all social strata, from desperate slaves to ambitious aristocrats, engaged in curse magic when they felt conventional means of justice or revenge had failed them. It truly sucked to believe magic was real and evil. A curse tablet, known as a defixio from the Latin defigere, meaning to fix or to bind down, was a primary tool for Roman black magic. These were small sheets of lead, or sometimes other materials like papyrus, bone, or wax, onto which a curse was inscribed. The curses were designed to bind or nail down an enemy, to influence their actions, or to inflict harm, misfortune, illness, or even death upon them. The motivations for casting such curses were incredibly diverse, mirroring the daily grievances and rivalries of Roman life. Revenge for theft, if you were robbed, and justice seemed elusive. You might curse the thief, demanding that the gods of the underworld torment them until the stolen goods were returned, or until they suffered a grim fate, love, and desire. Perhaps you were a spurned lover, desperate to win the affection of an unresponsive beloved, or to prevent a rival from succeeding in love. Curse tablets could be used to bind a person's will, to make them unable to sleep or eat until they desired you, or to make them sexually impotent towards anyone else. This was a dark form of love magic aimed at coercion rather than genuine affection. Competition in the cutthroat world of Roman business, law, and entertainment. Curses were frequently used against rivals. A charioteer might curse a competing charioteer to break his leg. A lawyer might curse an opposing lawyer to lose his voice in court. A shopkeeper might curse a rival's shop to lose all its customers. These were professional weapons, designed to cripple competitors, legal disputes. If you were involved in a lawsuit and feared losing, you might curse your opponent, the judge, or even the witnesses, hoping to bind their tongues, confuse their minds, or inflict illness upon them to ensure victory. General malevolence sometimes. A curse was simply born of pure hatred, a desire to inflict suffering for its own sake, or to see an enemy suffer a slow, agonizing demise. Perhaps for a perceived insult or betrayal, the decision to create a defixio was not taken lightly. It involved not only the psychological commitment to malevolence, but often a financial investment, as you would typically hire a professional magician or sorcerer, magus, or defixer to craft the curse for you. While some Romans might attempt to write their own, the most effective curses were believed to require specialized knowledge of the infernal deities, arcane symbols, and precise incantations. These professional practitioners, often operating in the shadowy fringes of Roman society, held immense power over those who believed in their craft, offering a terrifying, illicit path to vengeance or control. It truly sucked to pay someone to doom someone else. The very act of seeking out such a practitioner and commissioning a curse would instill a sense of fear and desperation in you. You would be venturing into a world of forbidden knowledge, dealing with individuals who trafficked in dark arts, and committing yourself to an act that, if discovered, could lead to severe legal penalties as magic. Particularly black magic was often viewed with suspicion and could be punishable by law. This moral and legal peril added another layer of anxiety to your pursuit of vengeance. The lead tablets themselves, chosen for their malleability and their association with the underworld as lead, was often used for funerary objects, were a potent symbol. The act of engraving or scratching the curse onto the soft metal with a stylus or a sharp nail, often with reversed or jumbled letters to confuse the target or make the curse more potent, was a physical manifestation of your dark intent. The words inscribed were not just text, they were a binding spell, a direct plea to malevolent deities to intervene in the earthly realm. One common misconception is that all Roman curses were generic and simple. In reality, surviving curse tablets show incredible diversity and specificity. Many defixiones are highly detailed, naming the target, sometimes their family members, specifying the exact nature of the desired torment. I bind his tongue, make her impotent, let him suffer fever until he dies, and explicitly invoking a wide array of underworld deities or demons to enact the curse. This precision indicates a sophisticated, if dark, understanding of magical practice and an intense personal desire for specific outcomes. Historians still meticulously study the precise language, symbols, and formulas used on thousands of excavated defixiones to understand the exact types of curses, their motivations, and the complex magical beliefs of ancient Romans, often finding a far more elaborate and pervasive system than once believed. Furthermore, the very act of creating a curse tablet involved a profound psychological commitment from you, the petitioner. You were not simply wishing ill on someone. You were actively participating in a ritual designed to inflict harm through supernatural means. This required a certain level of belief in the power of magic and a willingness to commit to a malevolent act, even if you did not perform the final chilling burial yourself. This psychological immersion into the world of curses added another layer of darkness to your own psyche, potentially leaving you haunted by your own vengeful desires. The prevalence of curse tablets found in archaeological excavations across the Roman Empire from Britain to Egypt indicates that this was not a rare, isolated practice, but a widespread phenomenon, a common tool for Romans seeking to control their world, resolve grievances, or express their deepest resentments through illicit magical means. Their existence highlights a pervasive undercurrent of fear, competition, and belief in supernatural intervention in the daily lives of ordinary people. So, your journey into the world of Roman curses began with a whisper of wrath, a desperate desire for vengeance or control that led you to the terrifying creation of a defixio. This chilling practice, driven by revenge, love, or competition, involved consulting shadowy practitioners and inscribing your dark intent onto a lead tablet. This profound descent into black magic was the first, and perhaps most defining, aspect of the disturbing world of curses and black magic in ancient Rome, setting the stage for the terrifying rituals and consequences that followed. Having unleashed your whispered wrath onto a lead tablet, your descent into the world of Roman black magic next led you to the chilling ritual of preparing the dark materials themselves. Forget benign ingredients. The effectiveness of your curse was believed to hinge on the meticulous crafting of its components, often involving grotesque elements and disturbing symbolic acts, making the entire process profoundly disturbing. Imagine the shadowy workshop of the professional magician magus or defixer you hired, or perhaps your own clandestine space if you dared to perform the rituals yourself. The air would be thick with the scent of strange herbs, stale incense, and the metallic tang of lead. Your hands, driven by a desperate desire for vengeance, would carefully manipulate the chosen ingredients, each imbued with its own dark significance. The primary material for a defixio was almost always lead. This soft, dull, heavy metal was favored for curse tablets for several reasons. Malleability. It was easy to scratch or engrave curses onto its surface with a stylus or a sharp nail. Even for an amateur, association with the underworld lead was symbolically linked to the chthonic underworld deities, the infernal gods like Pluto, Persephone, Hecate, and Hermes Chthonios, who were invoked to carry out the curses. Its dull, lifeless color and its presence in graves reinforce this connection. Durability once buried, lead would endure for centuries, ensuring the curse remained active and potent in the underworld. Imagine taking a thin sheet of lead, perhaps salvaged from a pipe, a discarded piece of writing material, or even a funerary object. You would carefully, often painstakingly, scratch your curse onto its surface. The writing itself was crucial. Curses were often inscribed backwards, bastrophodon, or with reverse letters, or jumbled words, not just to confuse the target, but to make the curse's magical power more potent and binding, twisted the natural order of language to match the dark intent. Sometimes, incomprehensible magical formulas, voces mysticae, or symbols, characters like stars, serpents, or stylized eyes would be added, believed to amplify the curse's power and direct the malevolent deities. It truly sucked to write in reverse just to cause harm. Beyond the lead, other chilling elements were meticulously incorporated, believed to infuse the curse with a more visceral, binding power. Nails, a common element, long, iron nails, often bent or twisted, would be driven through the finished lead tablet. The act of nailing down or piercing the tablet was believed to literally bind the target, paralyzing their actions, thoughts, or even their body, just as a nail pierces wood. Imagine the cold, hard clang of a hammer striking a nail through the lead, the sound echoing the dark intent of the curse, a physical act to secure a supernatural binding, human hair or fingernail clippings, to create a direct, sympathetic link to the victim. Fragments of their body were often incorporated, a lock of their hair, a few fingernail clippings, or even a piece of cloth from their garment might be wrapped around the lead tablet, or embedded within a wax curse tablet. This was believed to create an unbreakable magical connection, ensuring the curse found its intended target. Imagine the chilling act of acquiring these personal items from your unsuspecting victim, turning an intimate part of their being into a tool for their torment. It really sucked to literally use parts of someone else for evil. Animal parts. Certain animal parts were believed to possess magical properties relevant to the curse. You might use the bones or feathers of a bird associated with the underworld, or the blood of a specific animal. These were often grotesque ingredients, adding to the macabre nature of the ritual and amplifying its disturbing symbolism. Binding agents' wax figures, often crudely shaped to resemble the victim, were sometimes used in conjunction with tablets. The curse would be inscribed on the figure, which might then be bound with cords, pierced with needles often through the eyes, hands, or genitals to inflict specific torments, or melted in a fire. Each act designed to inflict corresponding suffering on the target. Imagine performing these acts of symbolic violence, believing every piercing of the wax doll caused real agony to your enemy. The entire process of crafting the defixio was often accompanied by incantations and rituals, spoken in hushed tones, invoking dark deities and malevolent spirits. The atmosphere would be tense, perhaps lit only by flickering lamps, amplifying the sense of forbidden knowledge and dangerous power. This meticulous preparation, this intimate engagement with the materials of a malefic magic, transformed your desire for vengeance into a tangible, terrifying object of dark intent. One common misconception is that all ancient Roman magic was simple folk superstition. In reality, while some practices were indeed rudimentary, others were incredibly complex, drawing on influences from Greek, Egyptian, and Near Eastern magical traditions. Roman magical handbooks, like the Greek magical papyri, found in Egypt but containing Roman-era spells, detail elaborate rituals, precise invocations, and specific instructions for crafting curses, demonstrating a sophisticated, albeit dark, magical system that existed parallel to official religion. The sheer volume and detail of surviving curse tablets attest to the widespread belief in and practice of these complex magical arts. Historians still meticulously study these recovered defixiones and magical papyri, often deciphering previously unknown scripts and symbols, to reconstruct the precise methods and beliefs behind Roman curse magic, confirming its pervasive and often complex nature. Furthermore, the act of physically crafting the curse tablet, meticulously scratching the words onto the lead, piercing it with nails, and perhaps incorporating personal items, created a profound psychological commitment from you. The petitioner, you were not just wishing harm, you were actively participating in a physical ritual designed to unleash supernatural forces. This tangible act, this intimate connection to the materials of vengeance, deepened your belief in the curse's efficacy and etched its malevolent intent into your own psyche, perhaps leaving you haunted by the very dark energies you sought to harness. The risk of counter magic or unintended consequences was also a constant. Underlying fear, Magicians often warned about the dangers of improperly performed rituals or of curses backfiring on the caster. This meant that every step of the preparation, every material chosen, had to be meticulously correct. Adding another layer of anxiety to your pursuit of vengeance, you were dealing with powerful, unpredictable forces, and any error could turn the dark magic against you. The very act of acquiring some of these dark materials, especially human hair or fingernail clippings from an unsuspecting victim, would involve acts of stealth, deception, or even outright theft, adding a layer of criminal activity to your pursuit of magical vengeance. This further blurred the lines between the mundane and the supernatural, making the pursuit of a curse a dangerous endeavor from its very inception. So, your descent into the world of Roman curses involved the chilling preparation of dark materials: lead, nails, human hair, and other grotesque elements, all meticulously crafted to bind and torment your enemies. This intimate, disturbing engagement with the components of malevolent magic, combined with arcane symbols and precise rituals, was a defining, profoundly disturbing aspect of ancient Roman black magic, ensuring your whisper of wrath was transformed into a tangible, terrifying instrument of supernatural vengeance. Having meticulously prepared your dark materials and inscribed your curse, your descent into the world of Roman black magic culminated in the terrifying act of summoning the underworld. Forget polite prayers to state deities, you would invoke infernal gods and dark spirits, believing they would enforce your vengeance, making this aspect of your curse profoundly disturbing. Imagine the ritual space. It might be a secluded, dimly lit room or a desolate spot at a crossroads late at night. The air would be heavy with anticipation, perhaps thick with the acrid scent of burning incense, not the sweet kind, but pungent. Acrid resins or the faint, metallic tang of blood from an animal sacrifice. You, or the magician you hired, would stand in solemn, hushed tones, surrounded by crude altars, magical symbols drawn on the ground, and perhaps effigies of the target. This wasn't about seeking blessings, it was about unleashing malevolence. It truly sucked to pray to demons. The core belief behind a defixio was that its power came from the chthonic deities, the gods and spirits of the underworld. These were not the benevolent Olympian gods like Jupiter or Minerva, but the dark, powerful forces associated with death, decay, and the subterranean realm. You would explicitly invoke them, calling upon their aid to bind your enemy. Common deities invoked included Pluto, Hades, ruler of the underworld. Associated with death and hidden wealth, Proserpina, Persephone, queen of the underworld. Hecate, Greek goddess of magic, witchcraft, crossroads, and ghosts, often depicted with 3 faces or bodies, a powerful and terrifying figure for spell casting. Hermes Chthonios, the underworld aspect of Hermes, who guided souls to the land of the dead, acting as a messenger between the living and the infernal realms. Demons, daimons, lesser, often malevolent, spirits of the underworld, compelled to carry out the curse's specific torments. These could be restless spirits of the dead lemurs or larvae, or specific supernatural entities associated with magical texts. The incantations used were crucial. These were not simple prayers. They were intricate, often lengthy, and terrifyingly specific invocations. They would be recited in hushed, guttural tones, or whispered intensely, sometimes backwards or using strange, foreign-sounding words. Voces Mystica believed to have ancient, potent power. The language was designed to command, to compel, and to bind the infernal powers to your will. You would explicitly detail the torment you wished upon your victim, demanding the gods of the underworld inflict precise suffering, bind their tongue, make them unable to sleep, cause them to lose their mind, inflict a wasting disease, or even bring about their death. Imagine whispering the precise torments you wished upon your enemy, feeling the weight of your dark intentions in every word. It really sucked to wish death upon someone through ancient magic. The act of invocation often involved a sense of desperation and profound earnestness. You were making a direct plea to terrifying forces, offering them a contract, your sacrifice, the buried curse tablet, or perhaps a small animal offering in exchange for their malevolent intervention. This wasn't a casual request. It was a desperate bargain with the supernatural, driven by intense hatred, jealousy, or a profound sense of injustice. The ritual was designed to heighten your emotional state, to infuse the curse with your raw anger and desire for vengeance. The very act of summoning these underworld powers, of explicitly dealing with demons and infernal deities, placed you on the fringes of acceptable Roman religious practice. While some forms of divination and healing magic were tolerated, magic that sought to inflict harm, maleficium, or bind a person's will was often considered a serious crime. Punishable by law, as we'll discuss in Chapter A, this meant that every invocation, every whispered name of Hecate or Pluto for ill intent, was a dangerous step into forbidden territory, risking not only supernatural reprisal, but also legal condemnation if discovered. One common misconception is that all ancient Roman magical practices were simple, harmless folk beliefs. In reality, Roman magical handbooks like the Greek Magical Papyri, a collection of spells and rituals from Roman Egypt, written in Greek but reflecting Roman magical practices, reveal incredibly complex, detailed, and often dark magical systems. These handbooks include specific instructions for invoking various deities, demons, and restless spirits for a wide range of purposes, including curses for binding, causing illness, or bringing about death. The sheer volume and specificity of these magical texts demonstrate a sophisticated, pervasive belief in and practice of complex black magic that existed parallel to the official state religion. Historians still meticulously study these papyri, often deciphering previously unknown scripts and symbols to reconstruct the precise invocations, rituals, and theological underpinnings of Roman curse magic, confirming its pervasive and often chilling nature. Furthermore, the act of invocation often involved symbolic gestures or actions designed to reinforce the binding. You might pierce the tablet with nails, symbolizing the binding of your victim. You might twist or deform a wax effigy of the target while uttering the curse. Believing this physical act would correspond to their suffering, these physical manifestations of your dark intent, performed in a sacred ritual, were designed to create a powerful psychological connection between your will and the supernatural forces you invoked. The very air around you would feel charged with malevolence. The psychological toll of actively invoking dark deities and malevolent spirits would be immense. You were intentionally opening yourself to forces beyond human comprehension, believing you were commanding them to inflict suffering. This profound engagement with the supernatural, this conscious act of malice, could leave you with a pervasive sense of unease, paranoia, or even guilt, haunting your thoughts long after the ritual was complete. The fear of unintended consequences, of the curse backfiring, or of incurring the wrath of angry deities would add another layer of anxiety to your life, making your vengeance a precarious and terrifying gamble. The secrecy surrounding these invocations was paramount. You would ensure no witnesses were present. No prying eyes could observe your dark ritual. This clandestine nature added to the psychological pressure, reinforcing the forbidden and dangerous nature of your actions. The very act of performing such a ritual in hidden places, under the cloak of darkness, intensified the sense of profound engagement with the shadowy, illicit world of black magic. So, your descent into the world of Roman curses involved the terrifying act of summoning the underworld. You invoked infernal deities and dark spirits with precise incantations and chilling rituals, believing they would enforce your vengeance. This profound engagement with malevolent supernatural forces, undertaken in secret and fraught with both spiritual and legal peril, was a defining, profoundly disturbing aspect of ancient Roman black magic, transforming your desire for retribution into a tangible, horrifying pact with the dark powers beyond the veil. Having meticulously prepared your dark materials and bravely invoked the terrifying powers of the underworld, your descent into the world of Roman black magic now required the chilling act of burial. Forget simple discarding, the precise, often disturbing practice of interring curse tablets in liminal and chilling locations was believed to activate their malevolent power, making this aspect of your curse profoundly disturbing. Imagine the final moments of your dark ritual, performed under the cloak of night or in a secluded, rarely visited spot. You hold the lead tablet in your hand, perhaps still warm from the recent engraving, its inscribed curses glimmering faintly in the dim light of your lantern or the pale moonlight. Your next action is crucial, for the power of the Defixio was not believed to be fully activated until it was placed in a location associated with the underworld or with binding. It truly sucked to bury your evil. The locations chosen for burying curse tablets were incredibly specific, deliberately selected for their symbolic connection to death, the underworld, or places where spirits could easily cross between realms. These were known as liminal spaces, thresholds between the living and the dead, or places of confinement and decay. Common burial sites included tombs and graves. This was the most frequent and symbolically potent location. Burying a cursed tablet directly in a grave, particularly in the tomb of a recently deceased person, was believed to harness the power of the restless dead larvae or lemurs to carry out the curse. The idea was that the deceased's spirit, now in the underworld, would act as a messenger or enforcer, delivering the curse to its target. Imagine kneeling beside a fresh grave, digging into the earth, and placing your curse tablet among the bones of the dead, whispering its malevolent intent to the departed spirit, hoping it would rise to do your bidding. The smell of damp earth, perhaps the faint scent of decay, and the chilling awareness of disturbing the dead would amplify the macabre nature of the act. It really sucked to literally rely on dead people for your revenge. Wells and springs. These were seen as conduits to the underworld, watery passages leading deep into the earth. Throwing a curse tablet into a public well or a sacred spring was believed to carry the curse directly down to the infernal deities. This also had a practical, terrifying implication if your curse involved causing illness, and it was indeed thrown into a public water source. It could inadvertently contaminate the water, leading to actual sickness in the community. Imagine tossing your curse into the very well where others drew their daily water. A chilling blend of magic and unwitting biological warfare. It truly sucked to inadvertently poison a whole town for one person. Sewers and drains. These were places of filth, decay, and darkness, symbolically linked to the underworld and to impurities. Burying a cursed tablet in a city sewer or a drain was another way to send it to the infernal powers, leveraging the foulness of the location to amplify the curse's negative energy. The stench and grime of these locations would make the act even more repulsive. Yet the desired outcome of the curse would drive you to endure it. Crossroads. Ancient Romans, like other cultures, considered crossroads to be liminal places where different paths met and where spirits or deities might congregate. Burying a curse tablet at a crossroads was believed to make it easily accessible to the underworld powers, who would pass by on their journeys. This public yet often desolate location allowed for a degree of secrecy while still connecting to the desired spiritual networks. Battlefields and sites of violent death for curses demanding death or violence. Burying the tablet at a place where violent death had occurred was believed to empower the curse, harnessing the restless spirits of those who died tragically. The act of burying the tablet was not just disposal, it was the final, crucial step in activating the curse's power. The tablet was physically placed in the realm of the dead or the infernal, effectively submitting it to the underworld deities for execution. Sometimes, it would be pierced with nails before burial, symbolizing the binding of the victim as discussed in Chapter 2. The secrecy of the burial was paramount if the target or someone loyal to them discovered the curse tablet. They might attempt to unravel the curse through counter magic or use it as evidence of your magical maleficium, which could lead to legal penalties. The psychological impact of performing this final act, of physically consigning your malevolent intent to the underworld, would be immense. You were actively participating in an act of dark magic, crossing a boundary between the living and the dead, seeking supernatural intervention to inflict suffering. This deep engagement with the forbidden, this intimate connection to death and decay, would leave you with a pervasive sense of unease, perhaps a chilling satisfaction, or a lingering paranoia that the dark forces you invoked might demand a price from you. It truly sucked to be haunted by your own malice. One common misconception is that Romans simply threw curses anywhere in reality. The archaeological findings of thousands of curse tablets show a remarkably consistent pattern of deposition in specific, symbolically potent locations. This consistency highlights the highly ritualized nature of Roman curse magic and the widespread belief in the power of specific places, tombs, wells, sanctuaries to activate curses. The precision of the burial location was as important as the inscription itself, reflecting a deep understanding of ancient magical topography. Historians still meticulously map the distribution of excavated defixiones and analyze their context to understand the precise magical beliefs about how these burial locations amplified or directed the curses. Furthermore, the very act of disturbing the dead for magical purposes was a profound taboo in many ancient cultures, including Roman society, yet the desperation to enact a curse overrode this taboo, indicating the immense power of revenge or desire for control. This willingness to violate sacred boundaries underscored the dark nature of the defixio and the extreme lengths to which Romans would go for supernatural intervention. Demonstrating the pervasive belief in the power of the dead, the risk of unintended consequences was always present. Magicians often warned that an improperly buried curse, or one not directed precisely enough, could backfire on the caster or affect unintended targets. This fear would add another layer of anxiety to your malevolent act, making every step of the burial process critical and fraught with potential personal danger. You were playing with incredibly powerful, unpredictable forces, and any error could turn them against you. The secrecy of the burial was not just for practical reasons, but also for magical efficacy. A discovered curse could be neutralized or even turned back on the caster. Therefore, the act of interring your curse tablet was often a clandestine affair, performed alone or with a trusted few, under the cover of night, adding to the illicit and disturbing nature of the entire process. This physical act of hiding your dark intent in the earth was a final, chilling punctuation to your desire for vengeance. So, your descent into the world of Roman curses involved the terrifying act of burying the curse tablet in a symbolically potent, often chilling, location. From ancient tombs and wells to sewers and crossroads, these liminal spaces were chosen to activate the curse's malevolent power, channeling it through underworld deities. This precise, disturbing ritual of interment was a defining, profoundly disturbing aspect of ancient Roman black magic, transforming your whisper of wrath into a tangible, horrifying instrument of supernatural vengeance, consigned to the realms of death and decay to wreak havoc on your enemy. Having meticulously prepared and chillingly buried your cursed tablet, your journey into the dark side of Roman magic often led to its most insidious and profoundly disturbing application love spells. Forget romantic overtures. These were not about genuine affection, but about manipulating, coercing, and tormenting a target, aiming to control their will and inflict suffering, transforming desire into a horrifying form of magical violence. Imagine the depths of your obsession. Perhaps you were a spurned lover, desperate to win the affection of an unresponsive beloved. Or perhaps you were consumed by jealousy, seeking to prevent a rival from succeeding in love or to inflict torment on an unfaithful partner in ancient Rome. When conventional means of persuasion or seduction failed, people frequently turned to magic. But these love spells were often anything but loving. It truly sucked to force someone to love you. The purpose of these defixiones for love was not to inspire genuine affection or mutual desire. Instead, they aimed to bind, coerce, and torment the target until they succumbed to your will. The language used in these love curses, found on hundreds of excavated tablets, is chillingly explicit in its malicious intent. They would demand that the target cannot sleep or rest, bind target's name so that she cannot sleep, cannot rest until she comes to me, cannot eat or drink, let target's name waste away, let her not eat or drink until she desires me, cannot find pleasure with anyone else, let target's name be cold to every man, woman but me, let her be impotent, nash, frigid with all others, but hot and passionate only for me. Be tormented by desire for the caster. Let target's name's soul burn with desire for me. Let her be driven mad by longing. Imagine inscribing such malicious desires onto a lead tablet, explicitly demanding the suffering of another person until they yielded to your obsessive will. The act itself was a profound psychological commitment to controlling and tormenting another individual, turning desire into a weapon. It truly sucked to literally wish misery upon someone you supposedly loved. The rituals associated with these love spells were often just as disturbing as the curses themselves. They might involve wax effigies. A crude wax doll, shaped to resemble the target, would be created. This doll would then be bound with cords, pierced with needles often through symbolic areas like the eyes, heart, or genitals to inflict specific torments, or melted over a fire. While the curse was recited, each act performed on the doll was believed to inflict corresponding suffering on the real victim, compelling them through pain and distress. Imagine melting a wax figure, believing your action was causing real agony to your beloved. Use of personal items, fragments of the target's body hair, fingernail clippings, menstrual blood, or pieces of their clothing would be wrapped around the curse tablet or embedded in the wax effigy to create a direct, unbreakable magical link. This clandestine acquisition of intimate, personal items, turning them into instruments of torment, underscored the invasive nature of these spells. Invocation of underworld deities, just like curses for vengeance. Love spells frequently invoked chthonic deities like Hecate, Persephone, or Hermes, Chthonios, and various malevolent daimons, demons, compelling them to bind the victim's will and inflict the desired torment. The power was believed to come from these dark, irresistible forces. These love spells were not about fostering genuine affection. They were acts of magical coercion and manipulation. They aimed to strip the target of their free will, forcing them into a relationship through supernatural torment and a crushing, inescapable desire for the caster. This deeply unethical nature of the spells, turning the sacred concept of love into an instrument of control, reflects a dark aspect of Roman magic that prioritized personal gratification and obsession over genuine human connection. It really sucked to be magically forced into a relationship. The proliferation of these love spells, as evidenced by hundreds of excavated defectiones found across the Roman Empire, many in locations like wells, graves, or sanctuaries associated with curses, suggests they were a common and widely practiced form of black magic. People from all social strata, frustrated by unresponsive desires or rivalries, turned to these spells in desperation, highlighting a pervasive belief in magical solutions for interpersonal problems. However disturbing their methods, one common misconception is that all ancient love magic was about seduction or benign attraction. In reality, a significant portion of surviving love spells are actually binding curses designed to inflict suffering, cause distress, or create sexual impotence towards rivals, rather than simply attracting a beloved through charm. This distinction highlights the darker, coercive nature of much of Roman love magic, aiming for control and vengeance over genuine affection. Historians still meticulously study the precise language and intent of these curse tablets, categorizing them by their specific effects and motivations, revealing a complex typology of coercive love magic. Furthermore, the very act of commissioning or casting such a love spell would fill you, the caster, with a pervasive sense of anxiety and paranoia. You might constantly worry about whether the spell was working, if it would backfire, or if your victim or their allies might discover the curse and seek counter magic or legal retribution. This constant psychological burden, coupled with the unethical nature of your actions, could lead to a profound sense of unease, ensuring that your pursuit of love through magic was anything but peaceful or fulfilling. The lack of consent from the target was a central, horrifying element. These spells were designed to override an individual's will, to force them into a relationship against their desire. This complete disregard for personal autonomy, this magical violation of another's spirit, reveals a profoundly disturbing aspect of ancient Roman beliefs about interpersonal power and control. Your desire, however strong, was pursued at the ultimate expense of another's freedom, making your magical pursuit of love a true act of emotional and spiritual violence. So, your descent into the world of Roman curses involved the most insidious application of its dark arts love spells. These were not about affection, but about manipulating, coercing, and tormenting a target, aiming to control their will and inflict suffering through magical means. This deeply unethical and profoundly coercive use of magic, designed to override free will and bind another to your obsessive desires, was a defining, profoundly disturbing aspect of ancient Roman black magic, transforming desire into a horrifying instrument of control and personal violation. Even as you sought to bind a lover's will or exact personal revenge, Your descent into the world of Roman black magic also provided powerful tools for sabotaging your rivals in the highly competitive arenas of daily life. Forget fair play. Binding magic was widely used to curse competitors in chariot races, gladiatorial contests, and political battles, aiming to bring ruin and misfortune, making this aspect of Roman magic profoundly disturbing. Imagine the intense competition that permeated every facet of Roman society, whether in the roaring Circus Maximus, the dusty gladiatorial arena, or the heated debates of the Forum. Life was a constant struggle for dominance, fame, and wealth, when conventional means of winning proved insufficient, or when fear of a rival was paramount. Romans frequently turned to curses, believing they could magically cripple their opponents and ensure their own victory. It truly sucked to be cheated by magic. The targets of these binding curses were incredibly diverse, reflecting the competitive spirit of Roman life. Charioteers, the most common and widely documented targets. Chariot racing was a hugely popular and incredibly dangerous sport, with massive sums wagered on the outcome. Rivalries between the different factions, blues, greens, reds, whites were fierce. Imagine being a wealthy fan, desperately wanting your favored charioteer to win. You might commission a curse tablet to bind the limbs of a rival charioteer, to make his horses stumble or lose speed, or to cause his chariot to crash. The curses would explicitly name the charioteer and his horses, demanding they be bound, paralyzed, broken, or crushed by the infernal deities. Many such tablets have been found buried in the Circus Maximus itself, or in cemeteries nearby, reflecting the intense desire to magically ensure victory. It truly sucked to have your horse cursed by a fan. Gladiators. In the brutal world of the arena, where lives hung in the balance and immense sums were wagered, curses were used to gain an advantage. A gladiator or his patron might curse an opponent to lose his strength, his courage, or his skill, to be blinded by dust, or to suffer debilitating wounds. Imagine a gladiator stepping into the arena, not just fearing his opponent's blade, but also an unseen magical binding that might make him stumble or lose his edge. This added a profound layer of psychological terror to an already deadly profession. Lawyers and orators in the cutthroat Roman legal system, where reputations and fortunes were won and lost in the courtroom. Binding curses were used against legal opponents. A plaintiff or defendant might commission a curse to bind the tongue of an opposing lawyer, to make him forget his arguments, to confuse his mind, or to make his voice falter. This aimed to magically silence the opposition and ensure victory in a lawsuit. Imagine preparing for a crucial court case only to feel your voice suddenly fail or your thoughts scatter, attributing it to the curse of a desperate rival. It really sucked to lose a case to magic. Political opponents. In the highly competitive and often brutal world of Roman politics, curses could be deployed to sabotage rivals. An ambitious politician might curse a competitor to lose public favor, suffer illness, or face sudden misfortune that would derail their career. While less commonly documented on surviving tablets than racing curses, the potential for such magical warfare in the political arena was ever present. Business rival shopkeepers, merchants, and artisans would use curses to gain an economic edge, demanding that a rival's business should fail, lose customers, or suffer misfortune. These curses would seek to bind the rival's prosperity, causing them to lose their skill, their clients, or their very livelihood. The language of these binding curses was explicit and brutal, leaving no doubt about their malicious intent. They would typically invoke underworld deities Hecate, Hermes, Chthonios, Pluto, and various demons daimons to carry out the specific torments, The tablets were often pierced with nails, folded or rolled, symbolizing the act of binding and inflicting suffering. The act of commissioning or casting such a curse was a profound psychological commitment to malevolence. You were actively seeking to inflict harm on another person, not through direct physical violence, but through supernatural means. This willingness to engage in dark magic, to seek an unfair advantage through unseen forces, reflects a pervasive, cynical undercurrent in Roman society's competitive spirit. It truly sucked to win by cheating with curses. One common misconception is that all forms of magic were equally forbidden in ancient Rome. In reality, while some forms of beneficial magic like healing or protective amulets might be tolerated, and state-sanctioned divination like augury was practiced, magic aimed at causing harm to others, maleficium or influencing free will, especially through binding spells, was often considered a serious crime. Punishable by law, philosophers and legal texts debated its legality and efficacy, and in some periods, practitioners of maleficium could face severe penalties, including execution. This legal danger added another layer of risk to those who chose to employ binding magic against their rivals. Historians still meticulously study various Roman legal codes. Philosophical discussions about magic and archaeological findings of curse tablets, especially those found near public spaces or competitive venues, to understand the precise legal and social attitudes towards different forms of magic, and the specific circumstances under which maleficium was prosecuted. Furthermore, the very act of secretly deploying these curses, burying them in strategic locations like racetracks, gladiatorial schools, or legal forums, as discussed in Chapter 4, added to the pervasive atmosphere of paranoia. If you were a charioteer who suddenly lost a race due to a mishap, or a lawyer who inexplicably stumbled in court, you might immediately suspect a curse, leading to a desperate search for counter-magic or a suspicion of your rivals. This belief in binding magic fueled a pervasive distrust, turning competition into a battle fought on both physical and supernatural fronts. The psychological toll on the victims of such curses, whether real or imagined, would be immense, as we'll discuss in Chapter 9, but even for the caster, the constant fear of the curse backfiring, of being discovered, or of inciting supernatural wrath through improper ritual would add another layer of anxiety. You were playing with dangerous forces, and the line between success and self-destruction was perilously thin. So, your descent into the world of Roman curses involved the widespread use of binding magic to sabotage competitors and rivals, from charioteers and gladiators to lawyers and politicians. These terrifying spells aimed to inflict misfortune, weakness, or mental confusion, making your pursuit of victory profoundly disturbing. This pervasive use of dark arts to gain an unfair advantage in the cutthroat arenas of Roman life was a defining, profoundly unsettling aspect of ancient Roman black magic, ensuring that even the thrill of competition was tainted by unseen malevolence, even as you deployed curses to bind your rivals and sought to control others' wills. Your journey into the world of Roman black magic inherently meant a constant struggle against unseen threats. Forget feeling secure in your malevolence, you were perpetually vulnerable to protection and counter-magic, forced to battle the very supernatural forces you sought to wield, making your life profoundly disturbing. Imagine the pervasive anxiety that would subtly gnaw at your peace of mind. If you believed in the power of curses, then you also believed in the power of counter-magic. The Roman world was filled with individuals who, like you, might employ dark arts, or who sought protection from them. You lived in a constant state of vigilance, wondering if an enemy might be cursing you back, or if your own magic might backfire due to an unseen mistake or a more powerful opposing force. This pervasive paranoia was an insidious torment, eroding any sense of security. It truly sucked to be haunted by your own beliefs. Romans used a variety of methods for protection against curses and malevolent magic. Amulets and talismans. This was the most common form of personal protection. Imagine wearing small, inscribed charms around your neck or wrist, carrying a small statuette of a protective deity, or even a piece of coral or specific stones. These items were believed to ward off evil spirits, deflect curses, and bring good fortune. A common amulet was the phallus fascinum, often worn as a pendant, especially by children, or hung in doorways, believed to deflect evil for you, the curse caster. This meant your victims might be wearing their own protection, potentially nullifying your efforts. It really sucked when your magic was blocked by a tiny penis. Charms and spells, just as curses were cast, so too were protective spells and charms. These might be recited incantations, or small pieces of parchment inscribed with protective words or symbols, carried on one's person or buried near a home. These were believed to create a magical shield against incoming maleficium. Purification rituals. Regular purification rituals, often involving water, incense, or specific prayers to benevolent deities, were performed to cleanse oneself of negative influences or to ward off ill luck. These were preventative measures, a constant effort to maintain spiritual purity against the unseen assaults of black magic. Counter magic defixiones contra. If you suspected you were the target of a curse, you might commission a counter curse. These were special defixiones designed to undo a specific curse, to return it to the caster, or to bind the magician who cast it. Imagine the desperate search for the original curse tablet, hoping to find it and perform a ritual to sever its power, or even turn it back on your tormentor. This was a direct magical battle, a duel in the supernatural realm, divine protection. Trusting in the protection of powerful deities like Jupiter, Minerva, or Apollo, people would offer prayers and sacrifices, seeking their divine favor to shield them from malevolent magic. This reliance on benevolent gods was a fundamental aspect of their faith, offering solace against unseen threats. For you, the practitioner of dark magic, the existence of counter magic meant your efforts were never guaranteed. Your carefully crafted curses could be undone, deflected, or even reversed against you, turning your own malevolence into your downfall. This created a constant sense of insecurity. Your power, though great, was not absolute. You would live with the anxiety that your target might employ a more skilled magician, or that a powerful deity might intervene on their behalf, rendering your dark efforts futile. The secrecy surrounding your magical practice, as discussed in Chapter 4, was partially a defense against this. If your victim didn't know they were being cursed, they might not seek counter magic. But the very paranoia your curses instilled in others meant they were always looking for signs of maleficium. And if they found evidence, your life could be in grave danger. One common misconception is that ancient Roman magic was a static, one-way system where curses always worked unchallenged. In reality, surviving magical papyri and curse tablets show extensive evidence of counter-magical practices, including spells for protection, unbinding, and reversing curses. This indicates a dynamic and interactive magical landscape where individuals believed they could actively defend themselves against malevolent magic, and magicians offered a range of protective services alongside their curse casting. This constant magical arms race highlights the pervasive belief in, and practical engagement with, both beneficial and malevolent supernatural forces in daily Roman life. Historians still meticulously study these counter-magical texts and archaeological findings of protective amulets, analyzing the specific symbols, invocations, and rituals used to combat curses. Furthermore, the legal consequences for practicing maleficium black magic were severe, as we'll explore in Chapter 8. If you were caught casting a curse, especially one that caused harm or death, you could face brutal punishment. This legal danger was amplified by the constant threat of being discovered through your victim's use of counter magic, or simply by an observant rival. Your pursuit of vengeance was not just a spiritual gamble, it was a constant legal peril. Ensuring your clandestine activities were fraught with anxiety, the psychological toll of constantly being on guard, of fearing unseen magical attacks, and of knowing your own dark deeds could backfire, would be immense. You might become overly suspicious of others, interpreting every minor misfortune as a sign of counter-magic, leading to a pervasive paranoia that eroded your peace of mind. Your life would be consumed by the magical battle, leaving little room for genuine peace or relaxation. You were fighting not just a physical enemy, but a spiritual one, a never-ending war in the shadows. The competition among magicians themselves also played a role. A successful counter-magician could gain immense reputation and wealth by publicly breaking curses, indirectly undermining your own craft. This professional rivalry, fought in the invisible realm of magic, added another layer of pressure and anxiety to your practice. You had to be constantly adapting, constantly vigilant, ensuring your methods were effective against the latest forms of counter-magic. So, your descent into the world of Roman curses involved a constant, terrifying battle against protection and counter-magic. Your malevolent efforts were perpetually vulnerable to being undone, reversed, or even turned against you by rival practitioners or divine intervention. This pervasive fear of magical retaliation, coupled with the legal perils of your dark craft, was a defining, profoundly disturbing aspect of ancient Roman black magic, ensuring that your pursuit of vengeance was a precarious, constant struggle in the shadowy, supernatural realm, even as you sought to protect yourself with counter magic and practice your dark craft in the shadows. Your life in the disturbing world of curses and black magic in ancient Rome was perpetually haunted by an even greater, more tangible threat: the law. Forget discrete operations, the severe legal consequences for practicing black magic, if caught, often included brutal punishment and even execution, making your pursuit of vengeance a terrifying, high-stakes gamble. Imagine the pervasive fear that would settle over you with every whispered incantation, every buried tablet. While many Romans believed in magic, the state often viewed certain forms, particularly maleficium magic intended to cause harm or magic used for political subversion, with profound suspicion and outright prohibition. This meant that your very profession, your very act of casting curses, placed you outside the law, a criminal condemned by the very system that governed Roman life. It truly sucked to be an outlaw in your own city. The legal framework surrounding magic in Rome was complex and evolved over centuries, often shifting between periods of tolerance and brutal persecution. However, various laws, like the 12 tables from the earliest Roman Republic or later imperial decrees, often targeted magical practices deemed harmful or dangerous to the state and its citizens. While folk remedies and simple divination might be tolerated, curses intended to cause illness, death, or to influence elections were seen as serious crimes. The punishments for practicing black magic were severe and often horrifying. Execution. This was a common fate for those convicted of serious maleficium. Methods could be brutal, including burning alive, crucifixion, or being thrown to wild beasts in the arena. Imagine the terror of being seized by Roman authorities, dragged to a public place, and executed in front of a jeering crowd, your death serving as a chilling warning to others who might dabble in forbidden arts, the burning of alleged magicians, their bodies consumed by flames, was a particularly gruesome spectacle. Designed to purify society of their perceived evil, exile for lesser offenses, or if your magical practices were not deemed to directly cause death. You might be banished from Rome or even from the entire empire. This meant losing your property, your social standing, and your family. Condemned to a life of destitution and anonymity in a foreign land. Confiscation of property. All your assets, your home, your tools, and any wealth you had acquired through your magical practices would be seized by the state, leaving your family impoverished and disgraced. Public humiliation. Even before execution or exile, you might be subjected to public shaming, paraded through the streets, or displayed in the stocks. Your alleged crimes proclaimed loudly, marking you as a dangerous social pariah. The detection of magical practices was often difficult, as curses were typically created and deployed in secret. However, if a victim suspected a curse, or if a political rival sought to eliminate you, they might employ counter-magicians to uncover your dark deeds. Evidence could include finding a buried curse tablet, as discussed in Chapter 4, a wax effigy, or testimony from informants who had witnessed your rituals. Once suspected, the authorities would spare no effort to track you down. The process of trial for magic often lacked due process. Accusations of magic could be highly inflammatory, leading to swift and biased judgments. Testimony might be extracted through torture, especially from slaves who could be compelled to testify against their masters. The atmosphere would be one of fear and superstition, making it difficult to mount an effective defense against charges that blurred the line between actual harm and perceived supernatural influence. It truly sucked to be on trial for imaginary crimes. One common misconception is that ancient Romans were entirely rational and did not believe in magic, or that magic was only practiced by uneducated commoners. In reality, belief in magic, both beneficial and malevolent, was widespread across all social strata of Roman society, from slaves to emperors, while official state religion emphasized public worship. Private magical practices were pervasive. However, there was a crucial distinction: magic used for personal harm. Maleficium or political subversion was viewed as a dangerous, anti-social act and legally suppressed, often leading to severe penalties. Historians still meticulously study Roman legal codes like the Lex Cornelia de Sicariis et Beneficiis, which included provisions against poisoning and magic, Philosophical Critiques of Magic, E.G.G., by Pliny the Elder or Cicero, and a vast array of archaeological evidence like excavated curse tablets and magical amulets to understand the precise legal and social attitudes towards different forms of magic, consistently finding a complex and often contradictory picture of fear, belief, and legal suppression. Furthermore, the fear of informers was pervasive. If you practiced black magic, you lived with the constant anxiety that a disgruntled client, a jealous rival, or even a desperate slave who might gain freedom by exposing you could report your activities to the authorities. This constant threat of betrayal added another layer of psychological pressure to your clandestine operations, ensuring you were always on edge. The psychological toll of living as an outlaw, constantly engaged in forbidden practices, and perpetually fearing discovery and brutal punishment would be immense. You would live with profound paranoia, unable to trust even your closest associates. Sleep would be restless. Plagued by nightmares of interrogation and execution, this relentless stress This constant awareness of your own precarious existence would erode your peace of mind, transforming your pursuit of dark power into a terrifying, self-destructive path. You were fighting not just your target, but the entire Roman state and its unforgiving laws, ensuring your vengeance came at a very steep, likely fatal price. The very success of a curse, if attributed to your magic, could paradoxically increase your danger. The more powerful or effective your maleficium was perceived to be, the more desperate and determined your enemies or the state would be to apprehend and punish you, making your reputation for dark arts a potential death warrant. Your ultimate power made you a target. So, your journey into the world of Roman curses involved a terrifying confrontation with the magician's price peril, punishment, and profound paranoia. The severe legal consequences for practicing black magic, including execution by burning or crucifixion, coupled with the constant fear of informers and the relentless psychological burden of living outside the law, made your pursuit of vengeance a profoundly disturbing and terrifying gamble. Your desperate desire for control and retribution came at the ultimate cost of your freedom, your body, and your very life. Even as your life as a Roman magician was shadowed by the terrifying threat of legal punishment and the constant fear of discovery, your dark craft, if successfully deployed, inflicted a different, often insidious, torment on your chosen target, the victim's torment. Forget direct physical violence. Believing yourself to be cursed led to profound psychological and often very real physical suffering, making the world of curses profoundly disturbing. Imagine you are the unfortunate recipient of a meticulously crafted defixio. Perhaps you are a charioteer who has suddenly lost your winning streak, a lawyer who inexplicably stumbled in court, a merchant whose business inexplicably failed, or a lover suddenly overcome by an obsessive, tormenting desire for someone you previously disliked. You might not immediately know you've been cursed, but something feels profoundly wrong. Your luck has turned. Your health falters, or your mind feels subtly out of your control. This sudden, inexplicable misfortune would be the first sign. It truly sucked to be cosmically screwed. The psychological toll of believing yourself to be cursed was immense in ancient Rome. Belief in magic was widespread and deeply ingrained in society, cutting across all social strata. If you or those around you attributed your sudden illness, misfortune, or strange behavior to a curse, the sheer psychological terror would be profound. You would live in a state of pervasive dread, constantly fearing the unseen forces at work against you. Every headache, every stomach ache, every business setback, every quarrel with a friend would be interpreted as evidence of the curse's insidious work. This constant anxiety and paranoia could become a self-fulfilling prophecy, making your life a waking nightmare. It truly sucked to literally be haunted by an idea. This psychological torment could, and often did, manifest in very real physical symptoms. The human mind, under extreme stress and fear, can produce powerful psychosomatic effects. A person convinced they are being cursed to suffer illness might indeed develop genuine physical symptoms, chronic fatigue, loss of appetite, insomnia, digestive issues like severe stomach cramps or diarrhea, or even skin conditions. Imagine lying awake at night, racked by an inexplicable fever or agonizing cramps, convinced that invisible demons invoked by your enemy were literally tearing at your insides. The agony would be real, even if its ultimate origin was psychological, exacerbated by a pervasive, constant dread. Your belief made you sick. For those targeted by binding love spells as discussed in Chapter 5, The torment was even more insidious. The curse was designed to inflict constant longing, inability to sleep, or sexual impotence towards all others, until the victim succumbed to an overwhelming, unnatural desire for the caster. Imagine your mind constantly consumed by an obsessive craving for someone you don't genuinely love, your body betraying you, your will seemingly hijacked by an unseen force. This was a form of psychological and emotional rape, reducing your free will to a puppet's strings, making your personal life a torment. It really sucked to be a love zombie. The target might also become increasingly isolated socially if their misfortune persisted, or if strange events constantly plagued them. Others might begin to avoid them, fearing the curse would spread, or believing the victim was somehow unlucky or touched by malevolent forces. This social ostracization would compound their misery, leaving them alone to grapple with their unseen tormentors. Their reputation would also suffer. If a lawyer or charioteer believed himself cursed, his performance would falter, leading to losses and a decline in his professional standing. This would not be seen as a natural downturn, but as evidence of magical interference, making it difficult for the victim to rebuild their career or regain trust. The curse, however unseen, had a very tangible impact on their public image and livelihood. One common misconception is that victims of curses were simply naive or foolish for believing in magic. In reality, belief in magic was a deeply integrated part of ancient Roman worldview. From the lowest slave to the highest emperor, when unexplained misfortunes or illnesses occurred, particularly those that defied conventional explanation, attributing them to curses was a rational within their worldview and common response. The fear was real because the belief was real. Historians still meticulously study archaeological findings of curse tablets and counter-magic amulets, as well as Roman medical texts and philosophical critiques of magic, to understand the precise impact of curses on their victims, often finding evidence of genuine physical and psychological suffering directly linked to the belief in magic. Furthermore, the lack of effective medical treatment or psychological understanding for such conditions exacerbated the victim's torment. A Roman physician might struggle to diagnose a psychosomatic illness caused by a curse, or attribute it to an imbalance of humors, offering ineffective remedies. There were no therapists to help them cope with the profound anxiety or paranoia. Their only hope lay in counter magic as explored in Chapter 7. But even that was a gamble, requiring belief in a system that mirrored their torment. The very act of seeking counter magic, of realizing you were the target of a curse, would intensify your fear. You would have to find a trustworthy magician, risking exposure to dangerous individuals, and engage in complex, often costly, rituals to undo the harm. This desperate fight against an unseen enemy added another layer of constant anxiety to your already suffering existence. Your belief in magic, while offering a path to fight back, also made you perpetually vulnerable. The psychological toll could lead to utter despair and self-destruction. Some victims might simply give up, succumbing to apathy, madness, or even suicide, convinced that their torment was divine and inescapable. The curse, designed to inflict misery, might achieve its ultimate goal through the victim's own psychological breakdown. A chilling testament to the power of belief in a world where magic was undeniably real. So, your experience as a target in the world of Roman curses was one of profound victim's torment, the pervasive dread, the very real psychosomatic physical symptoms, and the deep psychological suffering caused by believing yourself to be magically targeted, transformed your life into a waking nightmare. This insidious impact, exploiting the very beliefs of the victim, was a defining, profoundly disturbing aspect of ancient Roman black magic, ensuring that even invisible vengeance inflicted profound and lasting suffering. You've unleashed a whisper of wrath, meticulously crafted dark materials, bravely invoked the terrifying powers of the underworld, buried your curse tablet in chilling liminal spaces, explored the insidious torment of coercive love spells, and deployed binding magic to sabotage your rivals. Then you grappled with the pervasive fear of counter magic and, finally, confronted the horrifying psychological and physical toll on the victim of a curse. As the whispers of ancient incantations fade and the phantom scent of lead and grave dust finally dissipates, a profound, chilling truth settles upon you. The world of curses and black magic in ancient Rome was not just a fringe belief. It was a pervasive, disturbing force that profoundly shaped daily life, representing a cruel legacy of hidden power, pervasive fear, and immense, often unseen, human pain. Consider the fundamental reality of Roman superstition. Far from being purely rational, Roman society, from the humblest slave to the most powerful emperor, believed deeply in the power of magic, both beneficial and malevolent. This was not a quaint folk belief. It was a powerful, active force that shaped decisions, fueled fears, and provided a terrifying, illicit means of seeking vengeance or control. This pervasive belief system was the very bedrock upon which the entire disturbing world of curses was built, giving them real power in the minds of the people. It truly sucked to live in a world where magic was real and dangerous. Then there's the profound moral ambiguity and the lack of traditional justice, when conventional legal or social means of resolving disputes felt insufficient. Romans turned to curses. This allowed individuals to inflict suffering, exact vengeance, or coerce others through supernatural means, bypassing established laws and moral codes. The sophisticated crafting of defictiones, the specific invocation of underworld deities, and the meticulous rituals demonstrated a chilling commitment to malevolence. This hidden form of justice was outside the purview of the state, yet inflicted very real psychological and physical harm, exposing a dark undercurrent in Roman society. And what about the terrifying psychological and physical toll for the victim? Believing oneself cursed led to immense psychological torment, manifesting as pervasive dread, paranoia, and often very real psychosomatic physical symptoms like illness, insomnia, and loss of appetite. Love spells became a form of psychological and emotional coercion, stripping victims of their free will. For the practitioner, the act of summoning dark deities, the constant fear of counter magic or discovery, and the legal threat of brutal execution, burning alive, crucifixion created a life of profound anxiety, paranoia, and moral distress. The world of curses was a double-edged sword, inflicting suffering on both caster and target. It really sucked to be haunted by your own malice. Finally, the pervasive, hidden influence on daily life. Curse tablets were not rare curiosities. Thousands have been excavated, found in tombs, wells, and competitive venues across the Roman Empire. Their prevalence indicates that black magic was a common tool for Romans seeking to control their world, resolve grievances, or express their deepest resentments through illicit means. It touched every aspect of life, love, business, law, entertainment, and politics. This constant, unseen, magical warfare created an atmosphere of suspicion and fear that permeated society. adding a layer of unseen danger and anxiety to everyday interactions. The true, terrifying scale of this hidden world is now only being revealed through archaeology. The legacy of Roman magic is complex, while often dismissed as mere superstition. Its deep integration into daily life, its sophisticated if dark rituals, and its profound impact on individuals highlight a crucial aspect of ancient Roman worldview. The ongoing academic debate among historians and archaeologists about the precise efficacy placebo effect versus actual harm, prevalence, and legal enforcement of maleficium underscores its enduring significance as a social and cultural phenomenon. The study of depictiones and magical papyri continues to reveal the intricate, often terrifying, details of a world where people truly believed they could wield supernatural power for good or ill. One particularly poignant and often overlooked detail is the desperation that drove many Romans to use curses, whether it was a spurned lover, a victim of theft with no recourse in the legal system, a desperate competitor, or someone feeling profoundly wronged. The decision to engage in black magic was often a last resort, a cry for justice or vengeance when all other avenues seemed closed. This human element of desperation, driving individuals to forbidden acts, adds a layer of tragic understanding to the otherwise horrifying acts of curse casting. The curses, in essence, were often expressions of profound powerlessness, attempting to harness supernatural power when earthly power was denied. Ultimately, your journey through the disturbing world of curses and black magic in ancient Rome reveals a profound truth about human nature and ancient society. It was a world where fear, superstition, and the desire for control led individuals to embrace dark arts, inflicting profound suffering through unseen means. This cruel legacy of hidden power, pervasive fear, and immense, often unseen, human pain ensured that the seemingly pragmatic Roman Empire harbored a deeply disturbing underworld of magical malevolence that touched every aspect of daily life. As you now drift into a deep, comforting sleep, let the distant whispers of ancient incantations and the imagined chill of hidden tombs finally subside. You are safe, in your own time, far removed from the brutal realities of ancient magic. May your dreams be peaceful, filled with the quiet certainty of rational justice, the profound comfort of personal autonomy, and a world where your well-being is not subject to a dark spell. A stark contrast to the disturbing truth we've explored tonight. And now, good night, and have sweet dreams.